Recently, a video has gone viral on Southeast Asian social media showing a spiritual ritual performed by a group of Cambodian shamans allegedly aimed at influencing a high-ranking Thai military officer. Though it carries elements of folk belief, the event took place amid sensitive geopolitical tensions between the two countries, sparking widespread speculation about its underlying implications. What lies behind this ritual? How do spiritual beliefs influence politics and the military in the region? And is this merely superstition or a symbolic message about the security dynamics between these two neighboring nations? The video captures a spiritual ritual carried out by a group of shamans in Cambodia, reportedly targeting Lieutenant General Busin Park Kleng, commander of Thailand's 2nd Army Region, a strategically important area bordering Cambodia. Although not officially confirmed, the information quickly drew attention due to the currently delicate geopolitical relationship between the two countries. While not a military action, this gesture holds strong symbolic value. In many Asian countries, especially in Southeast Asia, integrating spiritual beliefs into politically or socially sensitive situations is not unusual, as spirituality remains deeply embedded in community life. However, reactions on social media have mostly been mocking. Many people argue that in today's high-tech era, relying on spiritual rituals to influence geopolitical affairs is hard to believe. Most opinions view it simply as a display of folk culture, not something that should be interpreted as an actual strategic tool. Nevertheless, this phenomenon raises questions about the role of traditional beliefs in the modern world. Historically, spiritual elements have been used by communities to boost morale, send symbolic messages, or express a stance in times of tension. In Cambodia, masters may include Theravada Buddhist monks, or folk shamans, and spirit mediums. Individuals believed to act as intermediaries between humans and the supernatural world. Similarly, in Thailand, belief in amulets, talismans, and spiritual items is widespread. The country is considered one of the world's largest markets for spiritual products, reflecting the deep-rooted faith in the supernatural among its people. If rituals like the one in the video are indeed genuine, they should be seen as ceremonial and cultural expressions, rather than instruments of actual influence. So far, there is no evidence showing that such rituals have affected any individual or specific military activity. While political leaders continue issuing diplomatic statements, another stream of influence, rooted in culture and symbolism, is spreading rapidly: the image of a group of shamans performing a ritual targeting a senior general. As a result, public discussion goes beyond the event itself and delves into broader conversations about the role of belief systems in international relations. In Southeast Asia, where the lines between spirituality, culture, and politics often blur, what appears to be superstition may carry an indirect message. Especially in border regions where ethnic identity and traditional beliefs are tightly woven, such rituals are not merely personal acts, but sometimes serve as cultural messages during sensitive times. In modern sociological and anthropological studies, belief in supernatural powers, including folk religions, spiritual rituals, or symbolic religious acts, often becomes prominent during times of upheaval or stress within communities. This phenomenon has been observed in many cultures worldwide, not just in Southeast Asia. According to several scholars, the presence of spiritual elements during times of instability can be interpreted as a psychological coping mechanism for communities, offering people a sense of protection or connection to higher powers, especially when practical solutions appear unclear or unavailable. This applies not only to individuals but can sometimes manifest on a national level through symbolic acts in politics, media, or military affairs. In the specific context of Cambodia and Thailand, the emergence of rituals such as hexing or spellcasting, despite lacking real physical effects, can still be considered a form of soft power. They may serve as a way to send subtle signals, demonstrate cultural resilience, affirm faith in national traditions, or even act as a kind of cultural sovereignty claim in asymmetric conflicts. However, in today's media environment, openly displaying spiritual practices often triggers layered reactions from the public. In the digital space, where users can easily access, share, and remix content, images of spiritual rituals are frequently received through lenses of humor, satire, or skepticism. This fusion of traditional cultural elements with modern entertainment perspectives has created strong viral effects, though it can sometimes distort or oversimplify the original meaning of the act. For this reason, interpreting spiritually driven actions in the context of international tension requires careful and multidimensional consideration. Such acts may represent a form of unique cultural response, but they can also express a deep-seated human need to connect and seek mental stability in a volatile environment. Unlike modern weapons such as drones, missiles, or radar systems, spiritual tools operate on a different plane of consciousness, one rooted in belief, emotion, and collective psychology. The use of rituals to send messages to an opponent, as seen in this case, is not entirely new. Throughout regional history, many nations have used cultural and spiritual symbols as part of their strategic playbook. From protective national spells embedded in royal Thai architecture to ritual prayers performed before major conflicts, these metaphysical acts have consistently played a role in bolstering internal unity and communicating intent externally. What makes this particular incident unique is how it spread in the digital world. Videos, images, and comment threads filled with skepticism and humor quickly turned the ritual into a viral phenomenon far removed from its original context. This raises an important question. Are we witnessing a calculated strategic act or merely a piece of social media entertainment in the digital age? Looking deeper into the phenomenon, it's clear that spiritual rituals can't be judged solely through the modern lenses of science or military logic. They don't need to be practically effective to create real impact. In many Southeast Asian communities, power isn't defined only by guns, but also by cultural symbols, spiritual energy, and the sense of reassurance that belief systems bring. The existence of shamans in Cambodia or amulets in Thailand is inseparable from the folk cultures of both countries. On both sides, belief is not just belief, it's identity, it's history, and it's a reflection of worldview. Therefore, performing such rituals during times of border tension can very well be interpreted as a form of symbolic communication, wordless but deeply meaningful. And because symbols can't be measured by data or radar, they are often undervalued in traditional political analysis. Yet in today's world, where media, public psychology, and collective sentiment can shift the course of a conflict, symbols can be weapons and belief can be soft power. In the final days of July, the border area between Cambodia and Thailand once again became the focus of regional media attention as tensions suddenly escalated at several border points. According to regional sources, clashes took place over a 5-day period, mainly concentrated in historically disputed areas where boundaries remain undefined. Though the scale of conflict was neither full-scale nor prolonged, its impact on civilians was significant. Unofficial data from local authorities indicates that roughly 140,000 people from the Cambodian side and 180,000 from the Thai side were temporarily evacuated from border-adjacent areas to avoid potential risks. This is considered one of the largest evacuations since the tensions of the early 2010s. Several civilians interviewed by local media said they were forced to abandon newly built or recently renovated homes, carrying only the most essential items such as stoves, fans, and basic necessities, using simple means like handcarts or old motorbikes. Their destinations were often community shelters or relatives' homes located far from the border, sometimes dozens of kilometers from the conflict zone. While there have been reports of property and human losses, no independent source has yet confirmed specific casualty numbers from either side. Some Western sources noted that access to the region is tightly controlled by armed forces, with most on-the-ground updates coming from local media outlets. In response to the situation, many humanitarian organizations and international observers have called for increased humanitarian access and urge both sides to establish safe corridors and protect the fundamental rights of affected civilians, especially women, children, and the elderly who are more vulnerable during prolonged displacement. A positive sign, however, is that alongside the developments on the ground, diplomatic activity between the two governments was promptly initiated, paving the way for high-level meetings and the potential for a ceasefire agreement aimed at de-escalation and minimizing civilian harm. After days of mounting tension along the border, a significant turning point occurred on July 28 when senior military representatives from Thailand and Cambodia held an emergency meeting at the Odenchi checkpoint located at the shared border between the two nations. Thailand was represented by the commander of the 2nd Army Region, while Cambodia sent the commander of Military Region 4 for the negotiations. This move was seen as an effort to establish a direct line of communication between the military units responsible for managing the disputed area. The meeting resulted in an unconditional ceasefire agreement effective from July 29, with 7 key commitments including Boris 1. Immediate cessation of hostilities with no use of force under any circumstances against military or civilian targets. 2. No further deployment of troops or military equipment to the border area while the agreement remains in effect. 3. Permission for the repatriation of injured or deceased soldiers, ensuring humane treatment and basic rights for armed personnel. 4. Support establishment of a joint coordination team with representatives from both countries to quickly manage on-the-ground developments. 5. Continued bilateral dialogue through higher-level diplomatic channels under the supervision of international observers. 6. Strengthening regular information exchange between regional commanders to prevent tactical misunderstandings. 7. Maintaining stability in residential areas near the border, supporting civilians in safely returning to their homes. One notable aspect is the emphasis both parties placed on the role of international monitoring in enforcing the agreement. According to regional sources, this is not only a verification measure, but also reflects a desire for transparency and legitimacy in the de-escalation process. The agreement has been positively received by several regional monitoring organizations, with hopes that it will serve as a stepping stone toward a more permanent and structured resolution to the long-standing border issue that has persisted for decades. Immediately following the meeting between military commanders, the top leaders of both nations quickly issued official positions. During a bilateral meeting in Malaysia, Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet and Thailand's acting Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin agreed to enforce the ceasefire immediately, without any political conditions attached. However, in statements to the press and his cabinet, Thailand's leader emphasized a balanced message: the ceasefire does not imply recognition of Cambodia's territorial claims. It is simply a necessary step to prevent escalation and open the door for diplomatic negotiations. Acting Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin stressed that all sovereignty-related decisions must be handled through international dialogue and mutual respect, not under pressure. From Cambodia's side, Prime Minister Hun Manet focused on the humanitarian aspect, saying that the ceasefire carries not just military value, but also paves the way for rebuilding affected communities, helping citizens return home, and restoring socio-economic stability in the border regions. In a social media post, Hun Manet stated that the top priority now is to minimize losses among both civilians and soldiers, restore supply lines, and provide logistical support to those who were forced to leave their homes during the clashes. According to analysts, the differing emphasis in the two leaders' speeches, one highlighting sovereignty, the other focusing on humanitarian concerns, reflects each country's strategic position and domestic priorities in this sensitive time. Nevertheless, both sides clearly agreed on the importance of dialogue over confrontation, which is seen as a positive step forward in a region marked by volatility. One widely shared story in both international and regional media is that of Lat Lem, a Cambodian farmer from a small village less than 10 kilometers from the border. During the outbreak of conflict, he and his family were forced to flee, bringing only essential belongings and traveling dozens of kilometers to find a safe place to shelter. The house he had just finished building after years of hard work was left behind, overshadowed by the fear that one mishap could destroy everything he had worked his whole life for. Lat Lem shared his experience. The most intense clashes in years between Thailand and Cambodia claimed at least 43 lives on both sides. The violence stemmed from disputes over sovereignty of ancient temples scattered along the roughly 800-kilometer border between the two countries. As artillery and gunfire grew louder near his village, Lem had no choice but to seek shelter in an underground bunker at his brother's house to survive. Being familiar with sporadic border conflicts, Lem's family had built a shelter beneath their home. Initially, he didn't want to leave, especially since the house was brand new and they hadn't yet held a housewarming. But as shelling intensified, he and his family had to evacuate with only basic supplies on a handcart traveling over 50 kilometers to safety. While they were in hiding, the border area suffered heavy damage from the ongoing fighting. Both sides accused each other of attacking civilian zones and hospitals. "I kept worrying my new house would be destroyed. I couldn't sleep," he said. Fortunately, when they returned after the ceasefire was announced on July 28th, the house was still intact, untouched by shellfire. The 5-day conflict had forced about 300,000 people from both sides to flee their homes in haste. From a sociological and public policy perspective, researchers have repeatedly emphasized that ensuring the safety and livelihoods of border populations should be a top priority in any negotiation or stabilization process. There can be no lasting peace if people living in frontier areas continue to face uncertainty and lack even the most basic protections. The story of the spiritual ritual appears to be just one small piece of a much larger picture involving security diplomacy and public sentiment along the Cambodia-Thailand border. While rooted in folk belief, the act raises deeper questions about how people seek trust and solutions during times of instability. In a world increasingly shaped by modernization, where technology and weaponry can shift the balance of conflict, symbolic actions like traditional rituals remain a powerful reminder that belief, however different, still plays a critical role in community life. What are your thoughts on the role of belief in modern conflicts? Do you think it's possible to resolve disputes through soft diplomacy and mutual respect in today's climate? Drop a comment below to share your perspective. Don't forget to subscribe, share this video if you found it insightful, and follow us for more in-depth analysis on regional and global affairs.